What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video. Today, we're going to have mock draft. This is the second mock draft that I've done this year, and this one looking a little bit different than the last one. New information coming in, guys going up, guys going down the board. Up to this point, the combine has not happened, which is why I want to do this before the combine happens. Things are about to change drastically throughout this week as the combine starts and continues to go. So, what we're looking at here, we're going to start with pick 15. And at the end of this, we're going to look at, I did an entire first round mock draft. You'll see everything that I have in the first round. But I have us taking Quinyon Mitchell. With the way things fall, with the trades that I have happening in the first round, if the Colts stay at 15, which I think they probably will, then Quinyon Mitchell is going to be the guy. We talked about this in a video sometime last week where Quinyon Mitchell rising up the board after the Senior Bowl, and he's a guy that, with all his physical abilities, is a guy that Chris Ballard would want to draft. He's a guy that, Chris Ballard likes his corners a certain way. Quinyon Mitchell makes a lot of sense, and I think in that first round, Quinyon Mitchell could be the guy. Now, the decision when I was picking at number 15, it was Quinyon Mitchell, Jared Verse, Nate Wiggins, and Keon Coleman. Those were the four that I was really looking at of who should I pick here? Who should the Colts take? And I started to think, what do I think the Colts are going to do? I think we're going to get a veteran for the pass rush in free agency. So Jared Verse, drafting him in the first round didn't make sense to me. And I also think we're going to get Michael Pittman Jr. in free agency, or whether it's free agent and we give him a new contract or put him on the franchise tag. He'll be coming back. We got Josh Downs last year. We have Alec Pierce again. So maybe just hold on to those core three, get somebody later. That's kind of what we're looking at here. So in that case, it was, do we get Nate Wiggins? Do we get Quinyon Mitchell? And I just thought Quinyon Mitchell was a choice here. And the reason for that being because I think the Colts are going to bring back Kenny Moore. I think we'll re-sign Kenny Moore. And then Nate Wiggins, it just wouldn't make sense to draft him in the first round for a guy that's not going to be playing. You typically would want to play the guy that you're drafting in the first round. Quinyon Mitchell, hell, Quinyon Mitchell might end up not playing with the depth that we're going to have at corner, right? Dallas Flowers, Juju Brents, and Jalen Jones. A lot of people tend to forget about Jalen Jones. Everybody talking about, oh, we need somebody to play on the opposite side of Juju Brents. I thought Jalen Jones played great. So it'll be interesting to see what the Colts do here. But again, Quinyon Mitchell is my pick right now for the Colts for pick 15. I believe the first mock draft I had Jared Verse. So either way, Colts staying on the defensive side of things here in the first round. Then you go to the second round. And I'll be completely honest with everybody from here on out, a lot of these guys I don't know. I'm doing quick homework on some of these guys. But Leonard Taylor, defensive tackle from Miami of Florida. This is a guy that, as I looked into him a little bit, I thought it made sense, right? Because I don't think we're going to bring back Grover Stewart. So get somebody in the middle. And Leonard Taylor is the guy that's over 300 pounds, but has versatility to move all across the defensive line. And I think having that versatility, just like Tomiade does, I think that's going to be important going forward. I think that's something that is attractive to GMs, especially Chris Ballard, and what he looks for in certain positions. I think Leonard Taylor makes a lot of sense in the second round, and we'll see if the Colts end up getting it done. But I think going first two picks in this draft being defense, very likely for the Colts, especially when you look at what we're able to do in the third round with the 82nd pick in the draft. There's another guy that we've talked about in the past with Xavier Legette being drafted. We had talked about whether or not we should get him in the first round, and here he is in the mock draft, and I only picked for the Colts. All right, the other teams was all computer generated. Xavier Legette ends up making it all the way to the third round, the 82nd pick for the Colts. That's where we pick up our wide receiver, add some depth, give Alec Pierce some competition for that number 2 pick. And I think Xavier Legette could win that job, to be completely honest. Another third round receiver for the Colts. Could this one be the one that comes in and be that star next to Michael Pittman Jr.? That's going to be the massive question. Or is he going to be the star no matter what, right? Is Michael Pittman Jr. not going to be back? So one way or another, Xavier Legette comes in, another third round receiver. Josh Downs last year, Legette this year, and I think we could have ourselves a nice combination of receivers. All of a sudden, one of the better receiving groups in the NFL if we're able to make this happen. And then going forward, getting some linebacker depth with Trevin Wallace from Kentucky. This is more of a depth thing, special teams thing. If he can develop into a player that can play in the NFL, start on the defense, what we really need is coverage linebackers. And up to this point, again, not huge on college. Don't know if he can be that guy. But I thought we need linebacker depth. So go ahead, get Trevin Wallace. And then the next one was a safety from Oregon State, Kid Oladipo. And this is a guy that, as I looked into him, he has versatility to play a lot of different ways. But this is thing kind of like Trevin Wallace. Like we need somebody like a versatile linebacker, somebody that can cover, right? And last year ended up being Ronnie Harrison, right? You look when Shaq got traded, Ronnie Harrison stepped into that role. So instead of bringing back a veteran on whatever, even a contract minimum for a veteran, then you can draft a guy at the number 150 overall, and you're not going to have to pay this rookie a whole lot, and he can do the same thing. He's versatile. He might not be, the fastest guy, but everything I saw from him was that he should be a guy that's playing in the defense where he can kind of play inside the box and come down. He has that versatility to come down. He can play in the run game. He can cover tight ends. So I think this is a good option for the Colts, somebody that they can put on special teams, but also somebody that they can come in and bring in like they did Ronnie Harrison. Same thing. Like that's the comparison for this pick is Ronnie Harrison and what he was able to do for us last year. And Ronnie Harrison looked really good in that role. So draft a guy 150 overall to come in and do that same thing, but you're not going to have to pay him as much as you would a veteran. So that's my thinking behind that pick. And then as you see here for pick 193 for the Colts, I went ahead and took Tory Taylor, the punter from Iowa. We had just talked about punters a few days ago, and it got me thinking some more, and it just makes sense, just like the Kid Oladipo pick, just go cheaper, right? You don't have to pay a specialist. You're not going to pay Tommy Townsend. You're not going to pay Rigoberto Sanchez. So this is a situation where if you're not paying those guys, go out, make sure you're able to draft Tory Taylor. Thought about taking him in the 7th because in mock drafts, I'm sure he would have been available still. But when it took him in the 6th, the Colts might have to take him before then. Who knows? But for my money, I would think bringing in Tory Taylor with as good as he was in college, like he's going to be able to get it done in the NFL. Every punter, every specialist that you've heard talk about Tory Taylor, everybody that I've heard talk about Tory Taylor says that he's like a sure thing in the NFL. He's great at what he does. So go ahead, bring him on the Colts, 6th round. We get a new punter, and we're saving a lot of money doing so that we can allocate some of that $72+ million in cap space to other things other than a punter. Okay, and then to finish off the Colts mock draft here, it's going to be Kingsley Aguakin from OC, Florida. And again, I know nothing about this guy. This was a 7th round pick. I think we're going to need a new backup center with the fact that Danny Pinter not only was injured last year, but also a free agent. So for me, I thought, hey, 7th round, might as well get that backup offensive lineman, see what he can do. Again, don't know anything about him, but it seemed like a hole that needed filled, so let's fill it in the 7th round. So that's what I have for the Colts mock draft. And of course, I'd like to know what your opinion is on any of that. I'd love to know. So you let me know down in the comment section. But again, as promised, real quick, we're also going to sit here and go through the mock draft, the whole 1st round mock draft, just as football fans, see what we came up here with. Obviously I had Quinyon Mitchell going to the Colts at 15. So what happened before that to make that the case? And what I have is Chicago actually keeping Justin Fields, trading out of the number 1 pick. And I have Minnesota trading up to number 1 and drafting Jaden Daniels, not Caleb Williams. They draft Jaden Daniels, who I think might be the most electrifying quarterback. I think Caleb Williams is very overrated, but I still have Jaden Daniels going number 1, going to Minnesota, Minnesota making a blockbuster trade to come up and get him a trade that's going to set the football world on fire. A lot of picks going to Chicago, but Chicago gets a chance to stay in the 1st round. They also keep Justin Fields. They get more draft picks for the future to build around Justin Fields, as Chicago has a bunch of money to spend in free agent as well. So Minnesota, number 1 overall pick, they get Jaden Daniels. Now, On this mock draft, for whatever reason, okay, I wanted to trade Washington down to number 8 and Atlanta up to number 2. I kid you not. I was on Pro Football Focus or Pro Football Network, whatever it is, one of these mock drafts, right? And I took just Washington's number 2 and every single pick for the Falcons this year and next year. Tried to trade it all, and it wouldn't accept any trade that I tried to do. Okay, so for the purposes of this, we're just going to say it does have the W here for Washington, but that is the Falcons pick. Okay, I have the top 2 picks in this draft being traded. Washington also going to keep their quarterback. I actually think Sam Howell is a good quarterback. I think he needs to be protected better. So that's why at number 8, I ended up having Washington going to be drafting a tackle. For number 2, I have the Falcons drafting Caleb Williams. They trade up. Minnesota trades up for the number 1 overall pick is Jaden Daniels. Falcons trade up to number 2 overall pick. They get Caleb Williams. And then, of course, with the Patriots at 3, that leaves them with Drake May, who I do think is going to be very good in the NFL. It's going to be too bad that he's going to the Patriots. See, one way or another, the Patriots end up with what I think is going to be a really good NFL quarterback, because I think Jaden Daniels is going to be really good. I also think Drake May is going to be very good. So we'll see what happens there, but that's the way I see the first 3 shaking out. That's the way the quarterbacks shake out. You know, the top 2 picks being traded, Justin Fields, Sam Howell stay in place, and those teams just try to build around the quarterbacks that they have now. But now Minnesota and Atlanta get new quarterbacks. You also have New England getting a new quarterback. And then at number 4, Marvin Harrison Jr., just like we've predicted all along, he's going to go to Arizona. Just makes sense for me. Malik Neighbors goes number 5 instead of Brock Bowers, like I've thought all along. You know, there was some rumblings and there's some talk about Mike Williams possibly being a casualty of the salary cap and not being on the Chargers anymore, especially with his injury history. So that would mean the Chargers want to get a receiver to be on the opposite side of Keenan Allen. They go ahead and get Malik Neighbors. And then at 6, Joe Alt goes to help that offensive line in New York. Titans need wide receiver help, so they go Rome Odunze, and that makes 3 wide receivers in the past 4 picks from 4 to 7, 3 wide receivers. Rome Odunze going to Tennessee, exactly what we don't want to see, right? Is Tennessee actually drafting a good wide receiver? But seems like that's very possible this year. Then again, at number 8, Washington, not Atlanta, Washington drafting Penn State offensive lineman that I'm not even going to try to say his name, but from everything I've seen, should be very good. He's a mauler type, should fit in exactly to what Dan Quinn and that new staff over there is going to want to do. Okay, and then at number 9, Matt Eberflus and the Bears, they draft a guy for the edge, get some more edge rusher. Then at number 10, Brock Bowers. I tried to find a way where Brock Bowers could fall all the way to 15. I just don't see it, man. There's so many teams that could use a playmaker like that, and I think the Jets, in the situation that they're in, Aaron Rodgers is coming back. Go ahead, get a prolific tight end for Aaron Rodgers to use, somebody that can eat the middle of the field up, somebody that can stretch the field as a tight end. Get another pass catcher that's valuable and pair that with what you have in Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, right? And maybe adding another pass catcher like that can help open up a guy that the Jets are paying $11 million a year to, and Allen Lazard, and maybe Allen Lazard can be more effective. So we'll see what happens. I just think Brock Bowers, if he falls to this point, I think it makes too much sense for the Jets to not draft Brock Bowers when right now they're trying to win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. So makes sense to me. Then moving on to 11, the pick where Minnesota would have been, but because of the blockbuster trade, now you have the Bears sitting at number 11, and this is where they get Terrion Arnold. Whether or not they're able to get Jalen Johnson back in free agency is going to be a question. So we'll see what happens there, but I think Terrion Arnold makes a lot of sense to go to the Bears. Again, Matt Eberflus, head coach, defensive guy. First 2 picks in this draft are the number 9 and number 11 pick for the Bears, in my opinion. And they end up going defense with both of them. Defensive end, cornerback. Terrion Arnold, very good. Should be really good in the pros. And for me, ends up on the Bears. And then you look at 12, where you have Leatu Leitu. I don't know if that's how you say his name. That's what it looks like. Defensive end from UCLA going to the Broncos, exactly what they need. Jerzon Newton going in and helping that defensive line. We know they're good on edge with Max Crosby, but now you bring in somebody to solidify the middle through the first round pick over there for the Raiders and their new head coach, who's also a defensive guy. I think that's the way they're going to want to go. And at the number 14 pick, right before the Colts, tackle gets taken from Oregon State, somebody that can slide in and help that offense and be able to protect Derek Carr so they can try to make something happen, try to make that investment work for them. And then that's how you get to 15, where a lot of good selections have happened. But I think the Colts take Quinyon Mitchell, right? Then you have Keon Coleman going right after that. That's somebody we were thinking about. But he goes to Seattle because I've heard Tyler Lockett might be going somewhere else. Nate Wiggins ends up going to Jacksonville, which is unfortunate because I think Nate Wiggins is going to be really good. They might not need him, but it feels like a good fit right there. Bengals solidify their offensive line with J.C. Latham. Jared Verse ends up going to the Rams. They get a young guy to help solidify that pass rush, somebody that should be very good in the pros. Then I have the Steelers taking a very boring pick because that's what the Steelers do. They go with a center from Oregon. And then you have Cooper DeJean going to the Dolphins with Xavier Howard planned to be released. Now, this says safety. He was a cornerback. At least I thought he was a cornerback, right? Am I wrong there? Like, I thought Cooper DeJean was a cornerback. But with Xavier Howard going to be leaving and with some other questions in the secondary, right? A guy that might be versatile. Maybe he can play safety and he can play at the corner position. So I think Cooper DeJean just makes sense for the Dolphins at that point. If he's still available, I see him going to Miami. Then Byron Murphy, the second from Texas, defensive tackle from Texas, going to the Eagles. Don't know if that one makes a whole lot of sense with everything that they have. But it just seemed to me like, okay, best player available. What makes the most sense right now? Maybe they go this way with it. Fletcher Cox could be retiring. So that's the way I went with it. Then I have the Texans taking another defensive end in the first round. This time is Chop Robinson from Penn State. Guy that's an absolute dog. I like that Penn State defense a lot. A lot of the guys coming out I think are going to be really good. So they get a guy to go opposite Will Anderson for that defensive line. Get a couple of really young guys to be edge rushers for them. It's going to be cheap for them. They're going to be able to allocate money in different ways if they end up doing that. So we'll see if that happens. It made sense for me with everything that was available. Kool-Aid McKinstry going to the Cowboys makes sense because Gilly's not going to be there anymore. So got to get somebody else to help fill out that secondary. Kool-Aid McKinstry seemed like the right pick. Then at 25, Packers get Tyler Guyton. Pretty boring pick there. Bo Nix to the Buccaneers was an interesting one for me. J.J. McCarthy, for some reason on the website I was on, is like the 14th ranked player. I don't know who thought. I'm a Michigan fan. I can tell you J.J. McCarthy is not the 14th ranked player in this draft. Bo Nix going to the Buccaneers, I think makes a lot of sense. Whatever they're about to do with Baker Mayfield, whether they bring him back or not, like Bo Nix to the Buccaneers, this feels like if you want to plan for the future, go get Bo Nix. This is a guy that I think can be really good in the NFL. He has the tools, he has the makeup, has the body for it. So get him in there, let him start to learn, let him start to figure some things out and start to build your organization for a future with Bo Nix. Okay, and then for 27, you have the Cardinals again, another first-round pick. They took Marvin Harrison Jr. with the first pick in the draft. Well, the fourth pick in the draft, their first-round pick. And then they finished their first round with the 27th overall pick where they take another wide receiver. They are completely overhauling that position. They take Brian Thomas Jr., another guy that we've talked about, the Colts potentially drafting in the first round, somebody that I think can be really, really good in the NFL. And I think if you pair Marvin Harrison Jr. and Brian Thomas Jr., that is a dangerous duo in the NFL. I think the Cardinals, if they do that, their offense is going to look crazy this upcoming season. Okay, and then to finish this first round real quick, have Carmen Kitchens going to the Bills. They need some safety help. They're going to need safety help. Micah Hyde hurt a lot. Jordan Poyer, I believe, going into last year, his contract. So they need some depth there. Bring in Cameron Kitchens, and then the Lions bring in a cornerback. They need depth there. Don't know a whole lot about Kamari Lassiter from Georgia, but He was a top ranked guy on the site I was looking at, so he got slotted in there. And same with the rest of these. I don't really know many of these guys, just going off quick things that I learned. The Ravens take a guard, the 49ers take a tackle, and of course, the Chiefs gonna take a wide receiver. So this is what I have. You let me know what you think of the Colts mock draft. Let me know what you think of my first round mock draft. Let's talk about it, man. And the combine starts up this week, so we're gonna continue to have content day after day. So make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you get notified when any videos do come out. And of course, I appreciate you stopping by for another video. As always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.